in Monday's conversation about Turning Point USA, I put the young people at the conference in the same category as the protesters outside.
And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last week.
Yeah, they have nothing else to talk about.
We begin with a shocking apology just a short time ago from the ladies of The View to Turning Point USA.
Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept The View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo-Nazis.
The second Charlie Kirk announced he's suing The View, Whoopi Goldberg vanished, gone, off the grid. And now, sources say she might have run for cover. It all exploded in Tampa, Florida. No celebrities, no influencers, just 5,000 young conservatives at a Turning Point USA summit, choosing ideas over chaos. And that alone sent shockwaves through liberal media. Then came The View, clutching pearls, firing baseless shots on live TV. They claimed TPUSA had ties to neo-Nazis. But here's the kicker. Those guys were outside, not invited, not part of the event, just random protesters on public property. But facts didn't matter. The smear had aired. Now, Kirk is locked and loaded with legal action. And The View is spiraling. Joy is stumbling. Sunny looks terrified. And Whoopi, gone. This isn't just talk show drama anymore. This is a full-blown reckoning.
Welcome back. In Monday's conversation about Turning Point USA, I put the young people at the conference in the same category as the protesters outside. And I don't like it when people make assumptions about me, and it's not any better when I make assumptions about other people, which I did. So, my bad. I'm sorry. Okay. So, the state, the U.S.
But that didn't stop The View from going full scorched earth. They didn't flinch. They pushed a narrative that these kids, these teenagers, were somehow linked to hate groups, not because of facts, not because of evidence, but because it fit their lazy, smug storyline. And when people called them out, they doubled down. No retraction, no remorse, just ego and arrogance on full display. This wasn't a slip-up. This was a calculated smear campaign. Imagine being 17, flying across the country to attend a political event, and the next thing you know, your face is being associated with neo-Nazis on national television. That's not just unfair, that's life-altering. You can't erase that kind of damage. You can't undo it with a tweet or a 5-second correction. This was reckless, this was elitist, and above all, this was desperation wrapped in designer outrage. And now, The View's silence says everything. They know they crossed the line, but they never expected the backlash would come armed with lawyers.
But look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it.
And this is where it exploded. While The View basked in applause and peddled reckless claims, Charlie Kirk clapped back. Not with outrage, but with ice-cold facts. From his podcast mic, he calmly dismantled their narrative, exposing that the so-called neo-Nazis weren't even part of the event. They were random protesters outside. Yet The View lumped thousands of innocent students in with hate groups on national TV. That's not a mistake. That's character assassination. And when the heat turned legal, Whoopi Goldberg, queen of smug takes, was forced to walk it back. Her apology? It wasn't remorse. It was pure damage control, triggered by the looming shadow of a lawsuit.
her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding.
Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom.
Charlie Kirk didn't just reject Whoopi's apology, he torched it. And he made one thing brutally clear. This wasn't about him, this was about the 5,000 students The View casually painted with the filthiest brush in media. He called it out for what it was, a public mugging of innocent reputations. While Whoopi sat on her high horse, tossing lazy accusations like confetti, Charlie stood up for those teens who now have their names tangled in Google results with neo-Nazis, for no reason but media sloppiness. He didn't whine, he didn't rage, he just brought the coldest weapon of all, evidence. While The View played the same tired game, dramatic pauses, smug smirks, synchronized head nods, Charlie dismantled them with timestamps, video, and truth. And suddenly, Whoopi's kingdom of midday applause crumbled into silence. The internet caught fire. People weren't just watching, they were waking up. Questions flooded in. Was this all made up? Why did no one stop her? The View's polished image began to crack wide open, revealing something ugly beneath. And for Whoopi, who's rarely questioned, never cornered, this wasn't just a slip-up. This was a televised fall from grace, and Charlie didn't just expose the lie, he shattered the entire illusion.
We begin with a shocking apology just a short time ago from the ladies of The View to Turning Point USA. A war of words broke out after the conservative group was rallying the next generation of voters at its youth summit in Tampa, Florida this weekend. And the liberal panel just couldn't help themselves. The group sent a scathing cease and desist letter after hosts on The View suggested that Turning Point had embraced neo-Nazis who showed up outside the event.
Now, let's get to the moment that truly ignited this firestorm, Sunny Hostin's elitist grenade. While The View was already drowning in backlash for smearing Turning Point USA, Sunny thought it was the perfect time to insult millions of Americans in one smug breath. On live TV, she sneered at uneducated white women who voted for Trump, basically implying that if you didn't go to college, you clearly left your brain at home. That wasn't bold. It was pure contempt disguised as commentary. But Charlie Kirk wasn't having it. He laser-focused on Sunny's tone, ripping apart the academic snobbery oozing from her statement. He fired back with brutal clarity. Skipping college doesn't make you dumb, and sitting in a lecture hall doesn't make you wise, especially when half of those campuses are pushing woke fantasies instead of real education. Then Charlie dropped the hammer. It's America's working class that holds this country together. They build the roads, fight the fires, stock the shelves, and yes, many of them vote red. But to Sunny and her cocktail-sipping co-hosts, if you haven't walked their elite path, you're disposable. Charlie didn't just clap back. He cracked open their entire ivory tower and showed the rotten side. He wasn't defending just conservatives. He was defending every American tired of being talked down to by millionaires on plush chairs. And then came the kill shot. Charlie didn't yell. He didn't flail. He dissected their arguments with surgical precision, pulling up receipts, clips, and cold hard stats that demolished the show's echo chamber narrative. By the time he was done, it wasn't just a rebuttal. It was a masterclass in dismantling elitist delusion on live television.
You let them in and you knew what they were. Right. So you are complicit. I want to make a quick clarification about the neo-Nazi Turning Point event. They were outside protesters. My point was more metaphorical, that you embraced them at your thing, I felt.
Well, fast forward to this morning, the host apologized before quickly cutting to commercial.
And Charlie didn't just catch them slipping, he caught them tripping over their own script again and again. It was like watching someone build a house of lies from IKEA and then having Charlie hand them the manual with every bolt out of place, circled in red. The best part? He made it look easy. While The View leaned on smug grins, fake applause, and hive mind banter, Charlie came armed with nothing but logic, and it crushed their entire setup. No fancy set, no glam team, no backup choir, just one guy, a camera, and Wi-Fi. That was all it took. And when his takedown hit the internet, it didn't just land, it detonated. TikToks blew up, YouTube Shorts went viral, Reels got clipped into punchlines, and Twitter descended into chaos. Reddit threads popped up like wildfire. Suddenly, people who hadn't touched The View in years were binge-watching Whoopi's weak apology and Sunny's meltdown like it was reality TV gold. But this wasn't just about one contradiction. Charlie exposed the whole machine. He showed how quick their polished facade collapses when someone throws a mirror in front of it. No screaming, no theatrics, just raw, undeniable truth. And that's what hit the hardest.
Sean, something that struck me in the cease and desist letter was the sentence that specifically The View host insidiously and cavalierly stated that TPUSA let the neo into its event, metaphorically embraced them, and it went on. Insidiously and cavalierly. And I felt that perfectly summed up exactly what those women were saying, which is something so deeply toxic and also so lightly thrown out there.
And so false. I mean, these were protesters outside of the event, right? They couldn't get in. These were not neo-Nazis inside of Turning Point USA. They were protesting outside on public grounds, and Turning Point tried to remove them.
The public ate it up. Because this fight wasn't just about TPUSA anymore, it was a full-on expose of a show built on fake claps and shallow buzzwords. As the online backlash exploded, The View had no choice but to respond. And their apology, a stiff, scripted, legal dodge, delivered without heart, followed by a quick commercial break to bury it. But the damage was done. Charlie revealed the real bombshell. TPUSA had to fire off a cease and desist letter to ABC just to force that weak apology. Accusing thousands of teenagers of neo-Nazi ties? That's not just reckless, that's defamation. And Charlie made it crystal clear this battle was far from over. Legal firepower was still on the table. Meanwhile, the real neo-Nazis never even got inside the event. They were outside on public land, and TPUSA staff tried to boot them out. But The View spun it like they were welcomed with open arms. That manipulation? Charlie shredded it, standing up not just for his group, but for basic fairness. Because if the media can botch facts this badly on something so huge, what else are they twisting? The internet noticed, and they're not letting go. Then came the moment that turned controversy into pure humiliation for The View. A casual, smug comment tossed off with chuckles and nods. That's the kind of careless jab they've made a career out of. But Charlie zoomed in, exposing the toxic elitism dripping from Whoopi and Sunny's words. As they sneered at Americans without college degrees, Charlie reminded the nation, going to college doesn't guarantee you're not clueless.
I don't want to say too much, but we're going to have a lot of fun at the Department of Education. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Can I tell you something? Like, I've had quite a few people contact me about that particular post. Like, I'm sure I have 1/100th of what you're getting, but people are contacting me about cabinet posts. I'm like, I got nothing.
I mean, yeah, I'm actually, after this conversation, heading to Mar-a-Lago for a week, and we have a lot to sift through, and if I could be helpful, I have asked. I want to be actively involved in all things education, as you can imagine. And
skipping lectures on gender theory doesn't mean someone can't think for themselves. And Charlie hit that truth hard. Then he delivered the line that really landed. Working people, the muscle of this country, men and women grinding every day, are sick of being labeled stupid. This wasn't just a political shot, it was a cultural earthquake. Charlie spoke directly to truck drivers, waitresses, electricians, moms and dads, the everyday Americans who keep the nation moving, but get zero respect from the smug daytime elites. This wasn't noise or shouting, it was a precise surgical strike on everything that props up The View's untouchable arrogance, their tone, their condescension, their reflex to dismiss anyone who disagrees. And Charlie didn't just challenge it, he destroyed it, quietly, systematically, and right out in the open.
Think if a liberal came to speak at University of Kentucky, they'd give an open mic like I just did to a conservative and had a discussion like this.
I certainly hope they would.
No, they wouldn't. Because speech is not a left-wing value. That is why they have to deploy shock troops called Antifa to go after everywhere I go. When I go to University of California, Davis next week, there has to be 120 police officers because of the threats, the violent threats of liberals that want me dead, that want to disrupt.
Charlie's move wasn't chaos. It was cold, calculated strategy. He didn't fall for the usual emotional trap the show laid. Instead, he calmly mapped out the entire timeline, breaking down exactly what went down, why it mattered, and how The View twisted every detail. Finally, someone did what viewers had been craving for years. They checked the receipts. Like a surgeon in an operating room, Charlie dissected Whoopi's wild claims with surgical precision. No panic, no theatrics, just ruthless facts. With every point, he chipped away at the glossy facade The View had built over decades. This wasn't a simple rebuttal. It was a full-blown takedown. No yelling, no insults, just facts hitting like a hammer. And it hit hard. His breakdown wasn't only spot on, it was straight up entertaining. The internet exploded. TikTok stitched it into reaction gold, YouTubers spun it into detailed explainers, Reddit blew up with endless quote threads. For the first time in forever, The View looked vulnerable, the kind of crack no amount of applause or commercial breaks could fix. Charlie's breakdown peeled back the curtain, revealing how flimsy their whole act really was. Even people who usually avoided politics started seeing how easy it was to tear apart The View's carefully scripted nonsense. As more people watched, the realization sunk in. This wasn't a one-off blunder, it was a pattern. A rehearsed script designed to sound deep but collapsing the moment someone actually asked, "Is that true?" And this time, the answer was a loud, clear no. As Charlie's clip spread like wildfire, the atmosphere on The View shifted. You could feel it even through the screen. The jokes stumbled, the applause sounded forced, and Whoopi's once untouchable confidence cracked. She stayed in that chair delivering lines like usual, but something was off. The fire dimmed, the righteous rage seemed rehearsed. It was like watching a fading star desperately replay their old hits while the crowd just sat silent. Even the producers sensed it. The show got safer, the hot takes cooled down, edges softened. Everything came with a silent warning. Don't go viral for the wrong reasons again. The bold, scandal-hungry View was fading, replaced by cautious quips and watered-down outrage. But the internet wasn't done. Charlie's clip wasn't just another viral moment, it became a cultural reckoning. Viewers who once swallowed the show's lines whole started spotting recycled arguments, glaring inconsistencies, and lazy shortcuts. The polished View image cracked, becoming a meme, a punchline, a cautionary tale. And here's the thing about the internet, it doesn't just criticize, it never forgets. It keeps the receipts. Even as The View tried to sweep the scandal under the rug, Charlie didn't have to do much more. The internet carried the weight. His video circulated like a forbidden secret, with titles like, "Did Charlie Kirk just end The View?" And this one clip exposed everything popping up everywhere. What stung most? Charlie never faced Whoopi on set. No shouting, no rants, no theatrics. He dropped cold, hard facts, stepped back, and let the internet dismantle the illusion. One clean clip, one precise breakdown, and suddenly people weren't just doubting that segment. They were questioning the entire show. Because when a talk show leans on applause over accuracy, it only takes one calm voice armed with truth to unravel the whole act. There was no dramatic meltdown, no tears on set. What happened was worse: the silence. The awkward quiet after a monologue when the claps don't come. The desperate glance off camera searching for support and finding none. That's the real collapse. Not being shouted down, but being ignored, doubted, and exposed for good. The View's so-called fortress, not even close to a siege. It was cracked wide open with ruthless surgical precision. Charlie didn't just fire back. He exposed the entire scam behind the curtain, and once people got a glimpse, there was no turning back. The real bombshell? The pathetic half-apology. The View tried to sneak in, tossing out a barely disguised accusation that TPUSA, metaphorically, cozied up to neo-Nazis. Metaphorically? That's not an excuse. It's a cowardly escape hatch, a desperate wiggle to avoid owning their slander. But Charlie wasn't having it. He and his team ripped that nonsense apart, exposing it as toxic gas masked as perfume. The protesters? Shut out. Not linked to TPUSA. Staff worked to kick them out. None of that mattered to The View. They threw out cheap shots and lazy sound bites just to bait applause. And here's the worst crime: that poison sticks. Drop a word like neo-Nazi on national TV, and the damage is permanent, no matter how many times you walk it back. Charlie wasn't just pissed, he was outraged. This wasn't politics anymore. It was an all-out character assassination of 5,000 young people, slandered by arrogant, lazy TV hosts hiding behind their scripts. And what screamed louder than The View's desperate backpedal? The deafening silence when the applause died. That silence wasn't just on camera, it roared backstage. The fiery rants cooled into awkward chuckles. The once untouchable energy cracked and crumbling, as if the show suddenly realized the audience was awake and angry. And it didn't stop with Whoopi. The entire machine, producers, writers, even the topics, suddenly hit the brakes. The sharp edges dulled to bland fluff. It was like a secret memo went out. No more viral disasters. Charlie never had to gloat. He didn't need to. His viral video had already ripped through the fake glam, the rehearsed one-liners, and the stage bravado without ever stepping on stage. He didn't torch the view with noise or rage. He dismantled it with cold, unrelenting facts and airtight receipts. Then, the internet took over. Once loyal fans started peeling back the layers, spotting the cracks, calling out the recycled lies and cheap tricks, the facade shattered, not with a scream, but with a quiet, sinking realization. Is this whole show just smoke and mirrors? Charlie's takedown wasn't about shouting louder. It was about dropping one undeniable fact at a time and letting the internet blow it up into a tidal wave. The applause-fueled empire crumbled under the weight of its own contradictions. This wasn't just another scandal. It was a wake-up call. The moment viewers realized they'd been cheering for sound bites that couldn't survive the slightest fact check. And once the trick was exposed, the clapping stopped. People sat back, silent and critical, waiting for the next slip-up. Now, here's the climax of this saga. The View's illusion didn't just crack, it was ripped wide open. Not by a rival show, not by breaking news, but by a guy sitting in front of a camera with a solid internet connection and the guts to say what millions were thinking all along. This isn't journalism, it's theater. Charlie didn't just point out their mistakes, he revealed how fragile their entire act really was. The applause, the attitude, the scripted opinions, they only looked powerful until one calm voice said, "Wait, that's not true," and backed it up. Once that truth was out, people couldn't unsee the scam. Whoopi could keep talking, Sonny could keep preaching. The shiny set stayed lit, but the energy, it had shifted irreversibly. The audience was woke, and that's something no camera trick or commercial break can fix. Because this was never about left or right. It wasn't even about Charlie or Whoopi. It was about the moment when common sense finally got a mic. The moment when logic crushed theatrics, when clarity wiped out confusion, and when one viral clip became a cultural reckoning. If you want more of this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and drop your hottest takes below. Catch you in the next one.